to introduce our presenter for today, Murdoch Taylor, and we will also have David Roberts from ABMI and Tom Habib from LPAC join us for the Q&A portion following the presentation, and I will introduce them once we get to the Q&A. So before I hand things over to Murdoch, I'll share a little bit about his background. So Murdoch is an experienced project manager and operations lead at the Alberta Biodiversity Monitoring Institute, ABMI, with a background in ecology and wildlife biology. He brings over 10 years of expertise of delivering wildlife and habitat monitoring programs across the province of Alberta. His professional background spans terrestrial ecology, environmental monitoring, and applied biodiversity research, with previous roles including work for industry, provincial and national parks, and academic research institutes. At ABMI, Murdoch contributes to the Institute's core mission of tracking the status and trends of wildlife and ecosystems across Alberta, supporting data-driven decision-making for land managers, government, and industry partners. He lives in Edmonton and enjoys hiking, snowboarding, soccer, and getting outdoors to spend time with his family. So with that, I will invite you to share your screen and pass it over to you, Murdoch.
Awesome. Thanks, Rachel. Let me get this pulled up here. Just get you to confirm that you're seeing it okay.
Yep, it looks great.
Awesome. Okay. Well, hi, folks. Yeah, thanks very much for providing the opportunity for us to come and speak on this project. Thanks to West Fraser and to FRIA for getting us organized, and a special thanks to Fuse for organizing this and getting things coordinated on their end. Going to be talking to you folks today about our multi-year program that we've dubbed the Biodiversity Trajectories Project at the ABMI. The full title is Testing the Effectiveness of Ecosystem-Based Forest Management in Alberta, and we're throwing in an extra phase. So we said we were going to present on phase 1 and 2, and then we're also going to touch a little bit on phase 3 today and during this presentation, and I'll just jump right into it here. So this is a broad overview of the presentation that I'll be running through today. So I'll be giving a little bit of a background and history. As I mentioned, this is a multi-year program. Can give you some background there for the folks that are less familiar with the program itself. I'll then run through a summary of what we've been doing within the Boreal Natural Region. So that's what we've been calling phase 2 of the program. We have information on year 1 field work, can talk a little bit about what we've accomplished and some of the challenges that we've met. And then I mentioned that we're going to talk a little bit about phase 3 as well. So that's the component of this program that's focused in the Foothills Natural Region in Alberta. That one's pretty early days still, but we do have updates to provide there. And then, yeah, I can just run through what we have on the books and plan for the coming years. Okay, so the project, as you can allude from the title, is based around ecosystem-based approaches to maintaining biodiversity. So these approaches have been adopted by most forestry companies in Alberta over the past several decades. As part of this approach, it relies on assumptions of the natural disturbance model, and so aspects of this include natural disturbance shaping our forests through time. So we know that our forests and biodiversity has persisted with wildfire on the landscape for millennia. And the part of the assumptions of this natural disturbance model is that biodiversity is maintained if harvesting patterns are within the natural range of variability that we see caused by wildfire and other natural disturbance. Biotic convergence between harvested and fire origin forest stands is a key assumption of the EBM model and the natural disturbance model of forestry. And so this is a big focus of the program. The BDT program is testing some of these assumptions around ecosystem-based forest management. The great thing about this program is a collaborative piece of work. So this is a FRIA funded project through FRIP funding. The ABMI has been leading the implementation of the technical side of things. There's also several companies represented from the forestry sector that have contributed funding as well as support for developing the program, providing data, that kind of thing. And then the ABMI is also partnering with Innotech Alberta, or ITA. So Innotech Alberta is a subsidiary of Alberta Innovates, and it's one of ABMI's delivery partners that help us with our field work. So they've been involved from the start. And I've listed here just the primary question that we're hoping to cover with this program, and that's how quickly and how well do biodiversity and habitat elements in harvested stands converge with those in burn stands. So there's a bit of a graphic here that runs you through the project history. I mentioned that this has been going on for quite a while, so it does relate to some work that was completed back in 2014. So we've been calling this sort of the legacy sampling or legacy data collected as part of this program, but the ABMI sampled in a series of post-harvest forestry stands within the ALPAC FMA back in 2014. In 2022, we got a group of folks together, including members from Forestry, Innotech Alberta, ABMI, to start to discuss what the biodiversity trajectories program could look like. And 2022 represented sort of an initial phase where we were pulling data together. We got a lot of support from the forestry industry to pull together information on their harvest patterns across the province, got accurate spatial data for both harvest as well as wildfires, and that kind of acted as a bit of a leaping off point for developing the overall study design for the broader BDT program. In 2023, we have what we were calling phase 1B, and so this was a bit of a pilot study where we were testing out some updated methods for monitoring biodiversity within these post-disturbance plots. So we returned to the legacy ALPAC sites that were originally sampled in 2014. And this was essentially a proof of concept year where we collected a bunch of data at those sites that were revisited and then put together a short data summary and report just sort of to test out some of the methods, prove that it could be applied across a broader landscape, which is what we ended up doing as part of phase 2. So phase 2, I mentioned, is focused within the boreal natural region. It kicked off in earnest in 2024. That was the year that we had our first data collected. And the project was expanded outside of the ALPAC FMA throughout the boreal natural region. So not just in the northeast portion of the province, but expanded west as well. Tom Habib, who's on the call from ALPAC, was like a big driving force in getting phase 2 off the ground. And I'll touch on all the funders that supported phase 2 in a second here. In green at the end of this diagram here, you're seeing phase 3. So this is the component of the program that we actually just started this year. So it takes a lot of the similar methods that are being applied in the boreal. It tweaks the study design a little bit, but then the phase 3 of the project is focused in the foothills natural region. Allowing us to have a look at a different natural region and expand this work to cover more of the FMAs of some of the funders that have contributed to this project. So we'll do a quick run through some of the value that the project is bringing to the funding partners. I have a couple of slides here. Part of the work is continuing to build a positive reputation for forestry in Alberta. So The ABMI implementing this work provides an independent third-party verification that this ecosystem-based management approach is achieving intended results, supports the AFPA's Love Alberta Forest campaign. The intent and the hope is that it leads to improved forest planning and biodiversity conservation. And some of the research or the management would fall in alignment with SFI and FSC certification. And, you know, conversations will continue to evolve as the program rolls on, but, you know, the hope here is that the work and the results and the write-ups will help inform and support adaptive management. So this does represent a large-scale check to confirm that EBM theory is accurate and appropriate. We hope that the research may drive future policy and forest management plans. So some of the folks in this room would be involved in developing those, and our hope is that the data could be used to support that kind of process, as well as improving planning and conservation. Okay, so I'll get into some more details about phase 2 of this project. So I mentioned that it kicked off in 2024. This is a free FRIP-funded project, and I've listed all of the funding partners on this slide here. So we have 7 different forestry companies that are participating in this one and funding it. We had good uptake from members of each of these companies during the planning phase. They had input in terms of what the program would look like and the overall structure of the study design, and we continue to strive to meet with these folks and provide updates and to work with them to make sure that the program is meeting their needs. And phase 2 within the boreal natural region. So I can talk to you a little bit about what the survey design looks like. The survey effort extends across the boreal natural region. We are monitoring sites that were established to measure 3 species groups and habitat elements. So I have a slide coming up that kind of highlights just the species groups that we're focusing on as part of phase 2. But on top of those species groups, we have stratification across 3 forest stand types. We're looking at 2 different rough stand age categories. And just as a note for the post-fire forest stands, we're only sampling in stands that have not been salvaged. So our target sample size across the 3 years of sampling is 90 sites. And the intent of the program is to combine the data collected in 2023 at the LPAC sites that we revisited during phase 1B, combining those data with the 90 sites that we're getting to with phase 2. So both of those phases of the project used the same methods, and so we're going to be able to leverage those data to expand the sample size. We're also looking to leverage ABMI's large baseline site data sets. So the ABMI's, some of you may know, like the ABMI does pretty extensive province-wide monitoring for biodiversity. We have a lot of sites in natural and older mature forest stands that could be used and leveraged to answer some of the questions related to this program. For the phase 2 of the project, 2027 is the final survey year that we have planned. Okay, so I'll run through just a little bit more detail about what our different sampling strata look like as part of this project. So we do have sampling groups. We're looking at mammals using remote cameras. Our crews are collecting vascular plant information at the site and then also collecting vouchers that they bring back to processing staff at the ABMI that can ID and identify species that can't readily be identified in the field. At each of these sites, we're also deploying ARUs, so autonomous recording units that monitor for birds and also pick up amphibians if they're there calling. And then we're collecting information on the habitat elements within the site. So information on like tree density and downwoody debris, information like that. So we have two disturbance types, post-fire and post-harvest. So all of our sites fit within one of those two categories. We're trying to evenly sample within those two types of disturbances. I mentioned that we have two stand ages as well. So all of our sites are approximately 15 years old or approximately 25 years old. So that's the time since disturbance. And then we have three forest stand types. So stands that are dominated by spruce trees, stands that are deciduous dominated, and then pine dominant stands as well. Okay, so this slide just shows you a quick peek at where we've been sampling as part of phase 2 so far. So this is year 1 and year 2 of sampling. So 60 sites on here, 30 in each year. The orange points on the map that you're looking at are for fire origin, and the purple are harvest origin. So we are in some ways constrained by access. We do have some helicopter access sites, and others are obviously road access, but we try and get a decent spatial spread throughout the province. And we'll be working this fall on picking the final 30 sites to sample in 2027. Okay, so once we have these data collected, once the equipment has been deployed in the field, that happens in winter. So our crews, as shown in this image here, will walk through these disturbed stands and deploy ARUs for monitoring birds, and then remote cameras for monitoring mammals. Where they are available in these harvested stands, we are sampling within disarticulated plots as well. So these are within retention areas. So not all of the sites have these available, but where the retention areas are large enough within the harvested stand, we will also place a set of equipment, collect vascular plants in these areas as well, and do habitat element measurements as well. So just to facilitate a bit of a comparison between what things are looking like within the retention plot versus within the main harvest area. We collect habitat elements and vascular plant data in the spring and summer. And so what this all amounts to is we're doing 3 visits to each site to collect the full suite of data. So equipment deployed in the winter, we go back in the spring to collect some of the habitat element information, and then the site is visited a 3rd time in the summer for vascular plant data, and then we retrieve the equipment at that time. Okay, so once the data are collected, the ARU and remote camera data are processed in ABMI's WildTrack. So that's an online platform that supports transcription and analysis of ARU and remote camera data. So we have techs that look at all of the audio clips and all of the remote cameras to identify what wildlife were detected at these sites. I mentioned that we also have, the ABMI has vascular plant taxonomists that work at the U of A. So our field crews bring them vouchers of plants that couldn't be identified within the field, and they identify specimens to species. And then we have a robust and full QA/QC process. The data get compiled and then are then handed over to folks in our science center who are in charge of running analysis and creating data summaries. So speaking of data summaries, we created a summary report. The latest one that went into the funder group and the steering committee was in March of 2026. Because we're still sort of at a preliminary stage with the data, we haven't had everything come in. We were able to provide information on species richness and relative abundance, and then also provide some summaries of habitat elements. So comparing harvest versus fire origin stands and 15-year-old stands versus the older 25-year-old stands. So this is just a quick snapshot of the data that we've collected in year 1. And an extensive and more fleshed out technical report will be put together at the end of the program that actually digs into some of the details a bit more. So part of the plan for the future analysis includes incorporating some of those ABMI historical data. So I mentioned that ABMI has a bunch of data within mature forest stands. So we'll be incorporating those data into the phase 2 report. Phase 1B data from the ALPAC FMA. We're hoping to explore differences in data that we're detecting within the retention stands versus the main harvest plot. And then we'll be looking at community similarity comparisons in plants and birds between our various strata, and then can also have the ability to run some FMA specific summaries of species groups. So I think it's fair to say that we're still looking to finalize the details of what that final technical report will look like. And our goal over the next year or year and a half is to meet with the steering committee, discuss the type of data that we're looking at, some of the things that we could be doing with it, and ensure that we're gathering feedback from them to maximize the value that they're getting out of this technical report and the study writ large. Okay, so quick run through of what's actually been completed for phase 2. So we have year 1 monitoring complete. The specimens have been processed, the data have been summarized, and the summary report was submitted in March. We have deployed equipment as part of year 2 monitoring, so that went out in February and March. And we're sort of in the process, we're halfway through this third bullet, so getting out for spring and summer protocols. So that work is underway. We have field crews out battling the wet and soggy conditions out there and collecting data as part of year 2 sampling. I list just a quick set of challenges that we've encountered so far with rolling this one out. I think access conditions has certainly limited where we can get to in terms of sampling. We need to pick sites that we can get to year round, so not just in the winter under frozen ground conditions, but also in the summer when things are a little more wet and boggy. We have been chased out of certain areas with wildfire, so fingers crossed we have a good year for that this year, but certainly it was something that affected where our crews could go and set up sites last year. And then making sure that all of our crews are consistently collecting data and calibrating things. We have training sessions at the start of this spring to get all of our staff together to make sure that everybody's on the same page, because there are a lot of moving parts and crews moving throughout the province to collect these data. Okay, so I'll spend the rest of the presentation. I'll just glance at the time here. So it is 12:30. I'll try and move through this content in about 5 or 10 minutes, so I'm leaving enough time for questions at the end. But I'm going to talk just a little bit about where the phase 3 work, which is focused in the foothills, is currently at. So as folks on the call know, the availability of wildfire within the foothills is relatively limited compared to the boreal natural region. So there was a little bit uncertainty around if we could actually apply the study design that we're using in the boreal to the foothills natural region, and if there was going to be enough wildfire to sample in within the foothills. As part of phase 2, we completed a feasibility study just to have a look at that. The results of that indicated that there were enough areas to sample in, and so with those kind of results coming in, further conversations with a subgroup of the funders from phase 2 to roll out the foothills component of this program. So it's a little bit different, the foothills study design. It's focused on mixedwood and pine forest stands, and we're more limited in the age of stands that we're looking at. So in this case, we're just looking at 25 sites per year for a total of 75. So again, it's 3 years of data collection. And I've shown here the funder group that is moving the foothills work forward. So West Fraser is a big champion of the foothills component of this, also a big contributor to phase two. But Emily Sisson and Laura Trout have been instrumental in getting the phase three foothills work stood up and moving forward, and getting other funders on board to help make the project a reality. Okay, so you'll recognize this schematic, but I've just indicated how things are a little bit different in the foothills relative to the boreal. So we're looking at the same group of species and species groups and habitat elements on the left there. Same disturbance types. We are only focusing on 25-year-old stands. There just wasn't the same availability of 15-year stands to allow us to sample in those younger stands. So 25-year stands for the foothills program. We're also not sampling spruce dominant stands in the foothills, and you can see that we swapped out deciduous dominant stands for mixed wood. So that was something that was requested from the funder group, that something they're more interested and more relevant for their FMAs within the foothills region. So we're looking at mixed wood and pine dominant stands. So I can work through just some quick information on the workflow and timeline. So it's the workflow is going to be similar to the phase two program in the boreal. So we are collecting data from 2026 to 2028. Each of these sites are again going to get 3 visits throughout the year. And data collected will be processed in the fall of each year. So memory cards and planned vouchers will be going to the U of A for processing in late summer, early fall, working with those data sets to create them in QA/QC, everything. So making sure that the quality assurance is there. And then the plan is to put together something similar, so like a bit of a summary report each year to give the funders an idea of where the project sits and the progress that's being made. But the big push will be creating a final technical report that falls within spring or early summer of 2029. So a little ways down the road, and phase 3 is pretty new in terms of being rolled out, but we have crews out this summer in both the boreal and the foothills. So pretty exciting to have that expand into the foothills natural region this year. We're looking at a similar approach for analysis for the final report, and we've listed some of the opportunities that we could be pursuing for summarizing these data. I do think that there will be separate and maybe unique conversations related to the foothills technical report relative to the boreal one. I do think that there's folks that sit on the steering committee for the foothills program that may be looking for something slightly different from the foothills work. So our goal and our responsibility at the ABMI is to organize these meetings going forward, and making sure that the voices are heard, that we're tweaking this in a way that it's relevant and it's useful for folks in West Fraser and Weyerhaeuser, CAM4. Okay, so this is almost my final slide here. So just talking through some next steps, I mentioned that we're going to be engaging with funders as our data sets grow, and solidifying the plan for our comprehensive analysis for both the boreal phase 2 program and the phase 3 program. And then data collection continues. It's a busy time of year, but we have crews out collecting data as part of year 2 on the boreal side of things, and year 1 for foothills. And I'm sure there's several folks on this call that are running into this already. Our crews I'm getting calls about ATVs getting stuck, and lots of fun roadblocks dealing with wet conditions out there, and just rough access conditions. So we'll continue to roll with the punches and get out to these sites as the spring and summer rolls on. I would like to spend some time just to acknowledge all the folks that have contributed to this project, including the FRIA funders that made this work possible. So I listed the companies here that have contributed funds to this and helped form and mold the study design. thanks to Emily Cison and Tom Habib for their work on the grant management side of things. I've mentioned that we have some staff from each of these companies sitting on the steering committee, so those folks are listed there. A big thanks to them. And I would be remiss if I wasn't thanking our hard-working staff from Initech Alberta, who are coordinating this fieldwork and battling their ways through 15-year-old regenerating burns and harvests, which is a thankless task a lot of the time. So with that, I thank you again for the opportunity to present this program to you folks, and happy to take questions.